Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here at the MIFT Mutts meeting, and let's give a warm round of applause to the kitchen staff for the delicious kibbles and bits they prepared for us tonight. Each dog I see is here for the same reason. Your human is not behaving. It's unbelievably rough when the ones you love are acting out. Their disrespect can make you feel so small. At times, it can feel hopeless. Well, your hope has just been restored. I'm Coco, and as a bona fide trainer of humans, I'm here to help. I will be covering the 3 major issues you might face with your disobedient human. First, let's make this clear. Human brains don't function the same way as dog brains. Contrary to popular belief, you are not the center of your human's life. I know. It's heartbreaking, but true. Humans are selfish creatures. Unlike how we primarily fill our days with eating, sleeping, and loving on them, humans incorporate bizarre rituals such as working or going to school in their days. As a new human owner, it can be upsetting the first time your human gets up and leaves the house at 7 in the morning. When my human Jim left for the first time, I was shocked. The best strategy for keeping your human home is the puppy dog face. It's pure gold. The morose eyes, the droopy mouth, and the pièce de résistance, a very subtle whimper. However, it is not foolproof. Most of the time, the big guns don't even work for me when Jim has to go to work, and I'm a seasoned professional. So, for plan B, you could 1, escape the house and make them hound you around the block for a couple hours. 2, bury their car keys. Or 3, leave a little gift in their closet for when they return, so they'll know they're in the doghouse. The next thing you should know is that humans want what they want. And what they want is for you to smell like a lovely field of lavender and lilacs. Come on, we're dogs. What can they expect? So what should you do if your human insists on giving you a bath? Well, another point I should make is that humans are simple creatures. The only reason some might consider them higher in society than dogs is because they have opposable thumbs. Big woof! Being able to open a door without opposable thumbs, now that's where the real talent's at. Returning to my point, squirrel, am I right? No, there aren't any squirrels nearby. I was just sit. Stay. Good dogs. Basically, if you make a task difficult enough, they will give up. Constantly shake, jump out of the tub, run! Who doesn't love the sweet, sweet smell of wet dog all over the house? Finally, humans think they always know what's best, and what they believe is best for you is taking you to the vet. But sometimes, you don't come back with all your parts, if you know what I mean. If your human tries to take you to the vet, my pals, all civility goes out the window. This is a war zone. If your human tries to lure you into a vehicle, you must resist the call of adventure. It's a trap! Run for your life! Refuse to be tamed, or heaven forbid, you might receive the cone of shame. Tonight, I hope you all learned something new that might help you control your disobedient human. Bring your human to heel. No matter how small they might make you feel, or how big they might seem, do not give up hope. As per the inspirational words of my human friend, Jim Hightower, even the smallest dog can lift its leg on the tallest building. Thank you, and good night. Thank you.
Are you aware that 6.5% of high school seniors smoked marijuana daily in 2014? Or that in 2017, daily marijuana use was greater than daily cigarette use among 8th 10th, and 12th graders. The United States Department of Education, Drug Enforcement Administration, and National Institute on Substance Abuse have reported these facts because there is a growing epidemic facing our nation. Washington, D.C. and 29 states are contributing to this by legalizing marijuana for medical purposes, despite the fact that it has not been deemed a safe substance by the Food and Drug Administration under any circumstances. So many people disregarding these facts and the lasting impact on substance abuse is incredibly alarming to me. So I've chosen to do something about it. But in my work combating the drugs and addiction crisis facing our nation, I have quickly come to realize that this is an issue everyone needs to become involved with. And there are 3 easy ways to tackle this problem together: accepting and understanding that there is a problem, becoming educated, and working to become the solution. The first step is accepting and understanding the problem at hand. While it may sound simple, this can often be the hardest part, as it can become very personal. Chances are, you know someone struggling with substance abuse or alcoholism. There are members of my extended family who have struggled with these same issues, and I've seen how profoundly the lives of abusers and families are affected from addiction. And it was one of the reasons I felt so compelled to become involved. So I joined a coalition that works under Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America, or CADCA. It was at meetings and trainings when I was able to grasp just how large of a problem this is in our nation and how it affects youth in my community. There was a study done that showed at my high school, where we have about 150 students per class, 30% of 11th graders have either illegally consumed alcohol or smoked marijuana in the past 30 days. This is alarming to me, as that decision does not only affect the life of the abuser, but everyone around them as well. As they use that substance, their brain becomes rewired to want to continue to experience that level of high positivity that they've gained. That level of high, so quickly achieved, is so easily accessible in substance abuse, making many other goals and achievements much less appealing. Many times this can include school accomplishments and finding and maintaining a good career. Their lack of motivation affects peers and coworkers, creating a much less productive environment. Due to this epidemic affecting you, we need to become educated about it and its outcomes, specifically problems that face your community. I've learned many facts about marijuana because that is a substance that directly affects my peers. My coalition feels obligated to inform and educate the public about those specific issues directly pertaining to them. And because of that, we've done many things to spread our message throughout the community. The most interesting thing, in my opinion, is our Hidden in Plain Sight trailer. Now, this is a storage trailer that you would attach to the back of a pickup truck, but inside, it is designed to look like a teenager's bedroom. Law enforcement officers take groups of adults inside on somewhat of a scavenger hunt to try to find the substances and drug paraphernalia that we've hidden throughout it, and in plain sight. By having this trailer available at parent-teacher conferences and other community functions in 1 year, we have been able to educate 479 adults about realistic concerns facing youth in their community. But more importantly, we are able to document that 93% of those people walked away with greater understanding of the subject. We've also been able to get youth involved in this education with our annual Dodge Against Drugs dodgeball tournament. Each year we have a speaker come in to talk to all participants before the event about the dangers of substance abuse. But more importantly, we give the opportunity for youth to make a healthier decision and have seen great success in this event. Again, these are just things that my coalition is doing to help educate and inform our community. If you ever hear of anything similar happening where you live, I encourage you to go and stay educated on this dilemma. While accepting the problem and becoming educated are incredibly important, nothing will change unless you become part of the solution. No matter your job or age, everyone plays an essential role in stopping this problem. Anyone can become a member of a coalition and can find or start a coalition at CADCA's website, cadca.org. Through that coalition, you can plan events to spread the message of this movement and work with government officials to acquire funding and change laws. But there are many other ways to become involved. One that can be so easy. but so powerful, is to mentor a youth who could be at risk. Just 5 positive adult relationships can be the buffer between that student and a harmful substance. Be one of the 5. If you can't think of anyone to mentor, then I encourage you to reach out to organizations such as Big Brothers Big Sisters to find a youth to help. If you're a parent, discuss this topic with your child. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration reported that teens who consistently learn about substance abuse from adults are up to 50% less likely to use those substances than those who don't. Be in the positive 50%. Now, I can't forget about the wonderful youth in the room who are already making positive choices. You have a part in this fight too. We are in the combat zone of this ever-growing epidemic. Find peers who could be at risk and be a friend to them. By working in efforts of prevention, we will be able to save money in the long term, as for every $1 spent on prevention, $7 are spent on treatment. If we stop drug abuse and addiction before it happens, we won't need all of these treatment facilities, not to mention how many lives we will save. As you can see, by accepting and understanding the problem at hand, becoming educated, and being the solution, we can end the drug problems facing our nation. But I'm here to tell you, I can't do it alone. My coalition can't do it alone. Every single one of you has an imperative role to play. Whether it be big or small, there is strength in numbers. The silver lining of an issue like this is that a community can come together to unite and fight an epidemic. This movement echoes what Helen Keller once said: alone, we can do so little, but together, we can do so much. Together, we can make a positive impact on our youth. Together, we can end the drug problems facing our nation, because we are stronger together. Thank you. Thank you.
I have always had a love for history, not for simply the names and the dates, but a love for the specific stories of people and events that have happened before us. This passion led me to start on a journey early last year that would eventually take me around the world in order to follow in the footsteps of a young soldier who gave the ultimate sacrifice for his country. I presented the following graveside eulogy at the Normandy American Cemetery on a rainy day in June. When I entered the cemetery, I saw rows and rows of beautiful crosses. But when I left that day, I no longer saw the crosses as simply marble grave markers. Instead, I saw each one as an individual person, someone who had given up a life with family and friends in order to serve for his country, someone who had made an impact but whose life had been cut short, and someone who had left behind a story. A life story I feel should not remain buried at the grave with their physical bodies, but one that should be remembered, honored, and shared. Technical Sergeant Everett E. Johnson was a dedicated soldier, eager to fight for his country, but who died tragically before receiving this opportunity. Everett was born to Clarence and Laney Johnson on March 10, 1907. He had 4 brothers and 1 sister, who all grew up in the small Midwestern community of Costy, Iowa, located just outside of Belle Plaine. He attended school and was employed as a farmhand before becoming an auto mechanic at the local car garage. There, he learned numerous skills that he would use later as a technical sergeant in the military. In addition to his occupations, he also found time to share his passion and gifts for music and ministry with both his community and church. On several occasions, he and his friends hosted parties wherein they supplied the musical entertainment, and on several occasions it was reported that a fun time was had by all in the local newspaper, the Belle Plaine Union. Perhaps Mr. Johnson underestimated the impact his gift of music had on others. Likewise, we do not always understand the influence our everyday actions have on the people around us. The daily decisions we make have the opportunity to change the course of our lives and our ability to make an impact. Throughout history, men and women have made the decision to enlist and participate in the military in order to make a difference in the world. In World War II alone, over 12 million men and women were part of the United States military and helped to protect the freedoms that we have today. Everett Johnson was just one of these people. He enlisted in the Army in January of 1941 and was initially stationed at Fort Snelling, Minnesota, before moving to a camp in Louisiana for further training. In 1943, he was assigned to the 782nd Tank Battalion, and the group began their training. They were stationed in Kentucky, California, North Carolina, and Tennessee, where they received specific training that would prepare them for the impending battle overseas. Everett and the 782nd Tank Battalion were finally called to active duty in January of 1945 in order to fight the enemy in the Battle of the Bulge. They crossed the English Channel on the Harry Gibbons transport ship, which was the first convoy to travel directly from the United States to France. The ship arrived in Le Havre on January 16, 1945. They waited into the night to disembark the ship, and once on land, they quickly boarded an antiquated rail train to travel closer to the staging area. All staging areas at the time were named after cigarette brands, and Technical Sergeant Johnson was to be temporarily settling at Camp Lucky Strike, just outside of St. Valery and Caen. The train was made up of 45 French cars, capable of holding 40 men and 8 horses, 24 wooden cars, and 21 steel cars. Technical Sergeant Johnson and the 782nd Tank Battalion, along with other troops, all boarded the rail cars, and the train began a slow journey towards St. Valery and Caen, France. Unbeknownst to many, the train had no speedometer, no speed recorder, poorly functioning brakes, and had on board a crew that was unfamiliar with the land grade between St. Vast and St. Valery and Caen. The train, having initially traveled only 10 to 15 miles per hour through the night, began to travel faster as day broke. As the train descended into St. Valery and Caen, the crew realized that the brakes were not going to hold out and allow them to arrive safely at the train station, which was a dead end. They blew the warning whistle, but it was too late. The initial cars ran right through the empty train station. One car landed in the bottom of the station, and the remaining cars crumpled on top of each other. Each of these cars was carrying troops. 159 men were wounded, and 89 died, along with Technical Sergeant Johnson. Soon after the war, a brief history of the 782nd Tank Battalion was written and dedicated to those men that were left behind. The dedication read, "Our hearts went out to those men then, as they do now. Though they have passed from our sight, they are not gone, for they are kept alive in our thoughts and memories." It seems like such a simple task to share the stories of and remember those that have gone before us. However, it is easy today to become so caught up in the numbers and statistics of the world that we forget that each one of us is an individual person, someone with unique characteristics that set us apart from one another. We are not just nameless faces to be disregarded, but we are people who have lived a life filled with times of struggle and times of happiness, times of joy as well as times of hardship. It seems that every day we hear on the news of tragedies that have ended in the loss of lives. The newscaster simply says, 5 dead in Afghanistan today, or 15 died in a school shooting. A statistic, a number. Those that died were more than that. Many times we hear these numbers, feel a brief moment of grief, and then brush it aside, forgetting about the lives these people were leaving behind. We neglect to remember them as the unique people they were, and how they were able to leave an impression on the people around them. Everett Johnson made the ultimate sacrifice to ensure freedom for his family, his country, and for future generations. Though his life was cut short, he used what time he had to make a meaningful impact. The memory of the sacrifice which he willingly offered to the cause of freedom will never be forgotten. Thank you, Technical Sergeant Everett E. Johnson. The brave young men and women buried at the Normandy American Cemetery are not the only ones that have a legacy. Each one of us also has a story we will one day leave behind, a life that will have had a significant effect on the people we came into contact with. With this in mind, I began to reflect on what I would leave behind one day. What would someone say if they were asked to write my eulogy? What difference would I have had on their life, and what would they remember me as? So I challenge you to reflect on your own life and the story you will leave behind one day. Think about the influence your everyday choices have on the people around you. What would someone say if they were asked to write your eulogy?
Attention all dads, the seminar is about to start. So would the group playing cornhole by the pavilion and the group of dads trading stock tips by the chips and salsa please be seated? Hello one and all, my name is Holly Hensworth and welcome to the first ever NDC, the New Dad Conference. I hope you all enjoyed our selection of grill out foods made for dads by dads, but now it's time to set the baby Bjorns aside and focus on the most important parts of being a dad. Is it spending quality time with your children or cooking your wife a nice meal when she comes home from work? Of course not. Though the meal thing would be nice once in a while, no. the most important part about being a dad is dad jokes. I'm a proud soccer mom and wife, so I can appreciate a good dad joke when I hear one, but they're a hard beast to tame. Today, I will be giving you 3 tips on how to tell dad jokes that will impress your wife and make any kid giggle. Dad joke tip number 1, take everything literally. This is the simplest form of dad joke and very easy to apply. Let's say your child, little Johnny, says to you, "Dad, I'm hungry." Your first inclination might be to think, maybe I should feed my child. Wrong. You must not show any sympathy in these situations. Instead, cherish the gift your child's just given you, the setup to your next dad joke. In this situation, your child has said, "I'm hungry." With this bit of information, they are actually telling you that their name is Hungry, and therefore, your response should be, "Hi, Hungry, I'm Dad." The perfect setup to the perfect dad joke, and luckily, it's reusable. It also works in situations such as "I'm tired" or "I'm thirsty." Taking things literally also works in the following scenarios. Did you get your hair cut? No, I got them all cut. Is your wife around? No, she's person-shaped. That one's a personal favorite and is sure to bring the house down at your next family barbecue. Now that you got the literal meaning of things down, it's time to move on to the big leagues. Dad joke tip number 2. These jokes are the father of all dad jokes. Puns. See what I did there? Puns aren't as simple as taking everything literally. They're an art form that has been passed down from generation to generation of dads. Puns can be generally simple to make, but before you start freestyling puns like a spin master, you've got to start somewhere simple. Punchline puns. Let's take this classic dad joke. What time did the man go to the dentist? Tooth hurty. This is the perfect example of a punchline pun because tooth hurty sounds like the time 2:30, but is also related to going to the dentist. I know what you're thinking. These jokes are old and overused, but let's face it, you're a dad. All of your jokes are going to be overused. Just work your way up until you feel more comfortable. Freestyle puns, for you fast learners, are generally simple, but every first-timer must remember the golden rule, pun anatomy. Pun anatomy is generally simple, homonyms and homographs. Homonyms are words that sound similar, like sailboat and for sale, and homographs are words that are spelled similarly, like bass, the low-singing voice part in a choir, or bass, a very hard fish to prepare. Knowing these 2 terms will help puns form more easily in your head when you're ready to take that next step. If you'd like more information about freestyle puns, I will be giving a seminar at the RDC, the regular dad conference, in June. I will be going right after the keynote address, George Foreman Grills, friend or foe. And finally, dad joke tip number 3. Timing. This tip is essential, not as much for punchline puns, but especially for taking things literally and freestyle puns. Dad jokes take a lot of patience. You could sit on a good joke for months at a time. Don't give up. Allow the opportunity to present itself to you. You want your puns to be primed for premium reaction, and this will never happen if the situation is forced. You can't just say, "Hi, Hungry, I'm Dad," without your child telling you that they're hungry first. Allow them to finish the setup before you dive right in with the punchline. Trust me, dad jokes are like a good crock pot roast. Give them time and they will taste delicious. These 3 tips are sure to make all the other dads laugh at your next block party. But just remember, take things literally, make lots of puns, and have great timing. You will all make excellent fathers and have great pun-tential. If you'd like more information, I will be signing copies of my book, The Gravity of Dads. It's impossible to put down, in the lobby outside. Thank you so much for coming, and good night.
I have a canvas and I say, it could use a bit of paint. Set its background to honeydew green. Apply the surroundings with different shades of blue. Draw in shapes of mulberry, brush with golden streaks, and contrast the look with some dark gray. Here it is. And here I am. Like the painting, I am layered, coated with different colors and identities that make me whole. You can't put me in a box. Can't simplify me into one mere entity because I am many different things and I've got lots to offer, baby. and so does everyone else. We each carry unique sets of social identities. It's like we're all one big Las Vegas buffet, so many options. Take me, for example. I'm a young woman, a Filipino-Chinese immigrant, and I'm queer. Take my neighbor too. He's a Black, bisexual, Jewish man, and a mortician. But what I'm trying to say is to recognize every person's multifaceted selves, because each of us go through life, its blessings and its injustices, differently. We focus too much on the familiar, and we don't delve into the more complicated issues or the more complex parts to a person's identity. And as a result, so many marginalized communities are still left out from many of our social reforms and movements. Kimberly Crenshaw, a renowned civil rights activist and scholar, coined the term intersectionality, the interrelationship of social identities such as race, gender, age, sexuality that lead to overlapping systems of oppression. She mentioned that because we do not have the available frames to see certain groups targeted by different kinds of oppression, overlooking their problems becomes easy for us, the reporters, and the politicians. Now, we have made great strides in our society. For example, we have seen the rise of the Me Too movement, opening up the discussion of sexual harassment and violence amongst men and women in the past 8 to 9 months. Technology and mass media gave us the ability to learn more of ourselves and the world that we live in. And though we have achieved great achievements, we are far from reaching total equity. The American public has only now taken notice of harassment and sexual violence because the majority of these women who have come forward are white and Hollywood celebrities. What many of us fail to understand is that the abuse has always been prevalent. And more importantly, it affects every community that we know. The nation's common workers, the LGBTQ community, men and particularly women of color. Since most of the spotlight is placed on white Hollywood celebrities, victims of smaller communities do not receive the same benefits that they do from movements and policy reforms. At a recent TED Talk, Crenshaw also talked about the case of Emma DeGraffenreid, who sued General Motors for race and gender discrimination. Emma believed that she wasn't hired because she was Black. The judge dismissed the case, stating that General Motors did hire African Americans and women. But the point, in fact, is that the African American employees were men who worked industrial jobs, and the women, mainly hired as secretaries, were all white. The judge did not want her to combine a race and gender claim because he thought that she would be given a special advantage for having 2 minority identities. So, you see, like the layers of a painting, Emma's overlapping identities of being both Black and female caused her to experience a simultaneous impact of racism and sexism. The rest of socially marginalized people throughout the world face a variety of issues due to intersectionality. Combinations of homophobia, transphobia, ageism, xenophobia can come together and create challenges that can be quite unique. For instance, take my sister and I. We are both Filipinas, but she is of a darker shade of brown. Same mother, different father. So although both of us would be considered as part of the general minority population, she experiences racism differently than I do. In our home country, dark-skinned Filipinos are often overshadowed by the fair-skinned or mixed Filipinos like me. They enjoy more academic and economic opportunities and are even considered more beautiful. We even have a booming whitening industry in my country. Whitening cosmetic surgeries, pills, soaps, skin bleaching, you name it. Back when I would go out to the malls or the street markets with my older sister, she would often get mistaken as my nanny. Nannies in the Philippines are often poor, uneducated, dark-skinned, and targeted for abuse by employers with money and power. So even though we all share that same Pinoy pride, we still persecute our fellow countrymen. Minorities can oppress other minorities. A black person can be sexist. A woman can be homophobic. A gay person can be racist. But we all have the potential to see things differently. Let's provide the frames necessary to recognize more of these targeted groups. All we have to do is look and listen. Now, that may sound like the simplest thing, and yet it is the hardest to put into action. Believe me, even I can sometimes feel way too self-righteous to even hear another person's arguments. Filipino barbecue chicken intestines are the best, and nothing can change the undying passion that I have for it. So, set aside your preconceived standards and beliefs. Before you step in with your thoughts and ideas, let the other side finish what they have to say. Ask questions. Learn more of the experiences unique to them and acknowledge their stories. Through Kimberly Crenshaw's words, we can't fix a problem if we cannot even see it. We can pour our hearts and souls beyond the canvases we've been given to honor other people's intricately layered paintings that are different from ours. Won't it be interesting to find out just how beautiful and complex humans can be? Thank you.
Is this thing like even on? Check. Check. Oh wow, there we go. Hi, hello. How are you all today? Awesome. Welcome to our annual meeting of the UGGs. For you newbies, UGG stands for the United Gregarious Girls Society. Now, I know gregarious is a big word, so I'll explain it to you. I mean, it has to be explained to me too. Gregarious means fond of company or sociable. Basically, we're just a group of basic girls, but we had to make the acronym work somehow. So yeah, sit back, relax, and I'll let you in on some of the ways on how our society works. First things first, Starbucks, the epitome of every basic girl's existence. Like without our frappuccinos, espressos, mochas, and macchiatos, how could we even survive? And don't forget about those cute barista boys, very important. And at $3 to $5 a drink, they must have high quality coffee. And don't get too upset because they literally always misspell your name on the cup, ruining all of your Insta pics. Ooh, speaking of Instagram, that's like my number 2 point. You have to find a way to post a picture on almost every single day of the week. For example, selfie Saturdays and Sundays, Man Candy Mondays, Women Crush Wednesdays, and Throwback Thursdays. No matter what, you'll always have a reason to post. And if you aren't alone and pathetic, be sure to throw in a picture with you and your bae literally every week. For those of you that graduated before 2013, bae stands for before anyone else. So like your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your iPhone, which leads me to my next point, iPhone basics. To be a basic girl, you have to have the iPhone. If you think otherwise, then you can't sit with us. You have to carry your iPhone around with you literally everywhere. It's like your lifeline. And whatever you do, every message you send, you have to use emojis that describe everything perfectly. Furthermore, if you're wondering whether or not your bae got your text, turn on their read receipts. This way you'll know when they read your text. But this also opens another can of worms if they read your text and don't respond. The struggle is real. Another struggle? People thinking that we wore the same pair of yoga pants every day. Seriously? Ew. To be a part of the Uggs, you have to own at least 15 non-matching pairs of yoga pants so we can put this misconception to rest. But you don't actually have to go to yoga. Who even has the time for that? So yeah, wear your yoga pants with, of course, your Uggs. I mean, duh, keep our society name proud. To be a part of the Uggs, you have to own so many pairs of Uggs. With all their new colors, styles, and completely reasonably overly priced merchandise coming out, you can never get enough. So yeah, wear your yoga pants and a pair of Uggs and a sweet North Face jacket, and your selfie game will be on point. Also, when taking the most perfect selfies, you have to hold your phone at a 45-degree angle, and you have to have good lighting. This can be in a bathroom or by a window, whatever it takes to white out your face so you can only see your mascara and mouth. Another tip, only show half your face and have duck lips. They're totes adorbs. So yeah, after you take a million selfies, you have to choose the right filter. And you have to post a basic quote about how strong, confident, independent you are. And don't forget to show how serious you are by using hashtags like #live, #love, #life, #selfie, #hot, with 2 T's to mention a couple. Okay, these are all #first world problems, and being a teenage girl is hard enough without having to deal with the drama and the peer pressure and keeping up with fashion trends and social media. You want in with a group of girls who really care about you? Just be yourself. Do what you love. Try to think of others before yourself, and you can truly be #happy.
Love is in the air and it smells like coffee. Anyway, welcome back to this weekly Coffee Addicts Anonymous meeting. My name's Angela Waterman, and I'm your new sponsor. I was actually really surprised when they asked me to do this because I drink coffee Monday through Friday and on the weekends. So you're probably wondering how I even obtained this position. My secret, I got here with coffee, obviously, weird jokes, and my ability to fake it through most grown-up interactions. I'm a daily coffee drinker. I actually had a few cups this morning, and by a few I mean 9. Don't give me that look, Martha. We know you drank the whole pot, but we don't judge. Anyway, I'm here to help you manage your coffee intake, and by manage, I mean enhance. So let's start at the top of our cup. I can help you all because I'm just like all of you in many ways. 1, I drink a ton of water. Filtered water. Filtered through coffee grinds coffee. I drink a lot of coffee, okay? 2, I drink coffee for the protection of others. I honestly don't know what I would do without coffee. Probably 25 to life. 3, drinking coffee allows me to do stupid stuff faster with more energy. 4, without coffee, I would not be able to tolerate the people I can barely tolerate with coffee. 5, I usually wake up pretty confused in the morning, but after I have had my coffee, I feel alert, and I find that I'm much more aware of exactly how confused I really am. 6, I wouldn't do anything for a Klondike bar, but I would do some pretty sketchy stuff for some coffee. And finally, when I arrived this morning and was asked, "How do you take your coffee?" I replied seriously, very seriously.
So let's start by acknowledging the fact that none of you are coffee addicts. You're coffee aficionados. An aficionado is a person who is very knowledgeable and enthusiastic about an activity, a subject, or pastime. In this case, your activity is drinking coffee. Your subject is coffee, and your pastime is making and/or enjoying coffee. So I don't want any of you to feel bad. Your love and passion for coffee has its benefits, believe it or not. So my thought-provoking statement for you all today is coffee tastes bitter, but we want it anyway. I'm sorry, Forrest Gump fans, but life is not like a box of chocolates. It's like a cup of coffee. First, life isn't always sweet and savory. Sometimes it's extremely bitter, and it can burn you. Sometimes you know what you're gonna get in life, and you can try to sweeten it up, but it still might leave a bad taste in your mouth. Second, the lighter the sweeter. Not just drowning your cup of coffee in creamer until it's pure white and tastes like a cup of pure sugar, Mom. But the lighter the load you carry in life, the sweeter life will be. But in theory, people shouldn't enjoy the taste of coffee. We're actually born with a natural reflex to reject bitterness. So why do we want coffee when humans are actually born with a reflex to reject bitterness? The answer, my friends, is if you get used to that flavor, it can become awesome. This is to say, if you have a positive outlook on life or situations that aren't so sweet, you're bound to have a positive experience no matter the outcome. Not to get technical, but according to chemistry, coffee is a solution. So my fellow coffee aficionados, never let anybody tell you that your coffee intake is ridiculous, because without coffee, there would be darkness and chaos. So Harold, don't ever tell your son that fairy tales aren't real, because I drink a potion made from magic beans every day and it brings me back to life. And you, Karen, next time someone tells you not to have that 5th cup of coffee, slap them. You don't need that type of negativity in your life. And you, Karen, next time your husband complains about the smell of coffee, you tell him to pour you a cup of coffee, hand you your book, and slowly back away. So my fellow coffee aficionados, looks like our cup is empty. So remember, life, it's like a cup of coffee. Sometimes it's strong, sometimes too strong for us at times, but other times it's sweet. It tastes of brilliance, and if stirred just right, it can be an extraordinarily brewed cup of joe. And remember, life's too short to drink bad coffee. Would you look at the time? Gotta run. No, Martha, I'm not going for the discount at Cafe Coffee, where you can get 2 large coffees for $2.38. I didn't even know about it. See you all next week.
Our world is split up into continents, there's 7 in all. And if you get the gist, we're gonna make a list from biggest to small. Goes Asia, Africa, North and South America, Antarctica, Europe, and finally Australia. Thank you. Sort of reminds you of your childhood geography class, doesn't it? Today, I want to talk to you guys about one of those continents, Africa. I went to Africa in 2014, and I'll never, ever, ever forget what I saw there. There were starving children everywhere, absolutely no transportation, no houses to live in, and no Wi-Fi. It felt like the world was ending. If there was anyone in this room who believed a word of what I just said, I'd recommend either Google or Bing, both great search engines that with one click will allow you to become better informed on the great continent which is Africa. With one click, you will learn that not everyone lives in a hut. There is water, transportation, and Wi-Fi. Africa as well is living in the 21st century alongside other continents. But don't worry though, today I'm not here to rant. Today I want to talk to you guys about the nature of misconceptions on Africa and how they keep us from embracing the truth, create negative stereotypes, and hinder our growth as individuals. According to the Oxford Dictionary, a misconception is defined as a view or opinion that is incorrect based on faulty thinking or understanding. Faulty thinking or understanding. How do individuals or large group of people develop faulty thinking or understanding? Well, good news is it's not rocket science. We won't be up all night trying to find an answer. It's actually easier than that. It comes down to 2 simple mundane things: lack of knowledge and media portrayal. This is where misconceptions keep us from embracing the truth. We all watch TV, movies, and have seen countless commercials. Sometimes it's wanting a thriller, so we can't sleep at night. Other times a romantic comedy, so we can enjoy another person's love life, forgetting about our non-existent ones. Though whether the production watched is enjoyable or not, we end up developing certain assumptions on certain people and places based off of how they're portrayed by the media. Africa is not immune to these assumptions. The media showcases 4 stereotypes on Africa. Nigerians with thick accents that represent every African accent, dark-skinned Sudanese that represent the racial diversity, Kenyan safaris that represent the geographical diversity, and of course, people living in poverty who represent every African's financial situation. Martina Navratilova, a Czech-American tennis player, said, "Labels are for filing, labels are for clothing, labels are not for people." These labels, these stereotypes can not only be blatantly incorrect, but also detrimental to a person or place's reputation. Africa is a continent. Yes, I know that most people in this room passed first grade geography, yet it still amuses me when people refer to the continent as if it's a country, or think that Africa is only Nigeria, South Africa, and Kenya. Africa has 54 different countries, the oldest being Ethiopia and the youngest being the Republic of South Sudan. And according to World Meters, Africa has a population of 1.27 billion people. Now, math may not be my strongest subject, but I think that's about 1/7 of the world's population. So how can 1.27 billion people, 1/7 of the world's population, all be from the same geographical location, be dark-skinned, speak with a Nigerian accent, and live in poverty? They can't. But due to misconceptions derived from the media, we end up forgetting what the truth is. Because truth is, Africa has diverse ecosystems. The Sahara is the world's hottest desert, the Ethiopian highlands, the savannas that cover half of Africa, and the rainforest which covers 80% of Central Africa. And these diverse ecosystems are not only populated with dark-skinned people. Africa has different races and ethnicities. It's not made up primarily with people who look like me. Melanin is not the qualifying factor that makes one African. And we as people get our accents from the 1,500 plus languages we speak. But due to misconceptions derived from the media, our 1,500 plus languages have always been looked down on because it's not a Western language. While in Uganda in 2014, a lady got mad that a Ugandan person was not able to reply to her in English, mumbling something about how Africans should learn English to better communicate with the world. But let me ask you something. Do the French expect the German to speak French when visiting Germany? Of course not. So why is that expected of Africa's people? L. Frank Baum, author of Wizard of Oz, said, "No thief, however skillful, can rob one of knowledge, and that is why knowledge is the safest and best treasure to acquire." The problem is, we substitute books with TV and movies and expect to attain the same level of cultural understanding as if having read a nonfiction, traveled, or simply refused to type any questions we might have into Google. This lack of knowledge can not only be detrimental to someone who's distant from the culture, but to someone who's close to the culture like myself, and can keep us from growing in understanding of one another. An example I can offer you was when I was 13. I'd gone to the public library with my siblings. My older brother and I were standing in the nonfiction section discussing possible books to check out, and standing next to us was a middle-aged lady. I paid her no attention and continued speaking to my older brother in our traditional language, Luganda. Later, this lady approached us. She was very kind. First, she spoke about books. Then she brought up how it was beautiful we were speaking the African language. Then, smiling, she told us about how her son had just adopted a little girl from Africa. No country, just Africa. Then later on, she told us about how fascinating this little girl's African culture was. Yet throughout this whole conversation, she did not mention once which country this little girl was from. This lack of knowledge was harmful to both her and me. If I would have just asked her once which country this little girl was from, we could have delved into a deeper conversation about this little girl's culture and heritage. And I could have informed her that as Africans, we don't like being deprived of our cultural and ethnic identity. We're Rwandan, we're Ugandan, Egyptian, Moroccan. We're not just the word African. We all have our different characteristics and features, and the world needs to acknowledge that. So back to our song. Our world is split up into continents, there's 7 in all. And if you get the gist, we're gonna make a list. List. Making this list is not hard, nor is searching for the truth through books, travel, and one another. Let's make this learning connection the song of humanity. Thank you.
Audrey, correct? Okay, and she had an after-dinner speech. One thing about her pet speech and humans and the dog howling was sometimes humor can sound and feel real. You know, so here I have 2 dogs at home, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I do all those things. I love the howl, but you know, you speak to your dogs, you talk to them when you get home. My wife thinks I speak to the dogs more than I speak to her. So, well, they don't argue as much, I always tell her. I love how she did her title with that. I loved how you were so sincere. It's just like, oh my gosh, it was like a storybook story. And I think you could put that in print and make some money off from it. So I loved your style, how authentic it was. I loved your volume of projection. You had demanded our attention with just cuteness. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Rachel and OO, guys, original oratory is something that goes beyond just creating a thematic. You must base everything around a point that you want to achieve in 8 minutes. You want to be able to tell a story, give information, use some facts, maybe some quotes that would tend to make you give a persuasive or authentic emotional speech. And I thought she did everything there. When I watched Rachel, I thought you were almost like an attorney speaking to us, but not insulting. If you were in here, you learned so much because it was so sincere and real. One difficult thing when you're a persuasive speaker is not to insult the other side of the argument, if you've ever done that. You weren't insulted. You checked yourself in your head and you said, do I do that? I understand what you're saying. So you can disagree with Rachel or agree, but you felt welcomed into her speech. And that's very difficult to do, Rachel. You did an excellent job with that. So a strong speaker, authentic speaker, and an inviting speaker, which is very difficult on a controversial issue. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Julie has a great job with her OO about 2 different styles of speakers if you were in here. This one here, the kind of the attorney, sorry if I do that to you, but this one here was like a storybook. You know, you went through the war episode that she talked about, and you came along on the train ride, and then when the tragedy happened, it's just like you could hear a pin drop in here. To give an OO with authentic style is very difficult to do, because how much you persuade with emotion, how much you persuade with the facts. And I thought she blended that extremely well. The entire time I wanted to take notes about what she was saying, as well as I could just see pages flipping as if it was written to tell a group of people about an event in your life or an ancestor's life. So I thought that was so good to do. Very interesting approach. Strong use of pauses and stage usage. Thank you. Is it Quinny? Mm-hmm. Quinny, how many of you are here for after dinner with Quinny? You know, she's kind of, no offense, vertically challenged. Oh my gosh, she took over the stage, didn't she? She gets up here and I was thinking, oh, maybe I should move closer to her. She's like, bam, okay? What a great speech. And it wasn't so great because I'm a dad and a granddad, but it was just hilarious how she used the puns. She had us right here. You know, I don't want this to be insulting, but you're a ham, okay? And in this category, that makes it, if you've ever coached after dinner. If she chooses to be humorous and that style of humor, oh my gosh, every syllable had a meaning. And every pun related to her thematics, back to the point, back to the point, back to the point. So I was wrapped up because being a dad going, I did that? I just wanted you to pull my finger one time. Because that was one of my best moves. But I just loved it. And I put down this because, I don't know, that face. You know, every time I looked up, I just wanted to go, oh, because it was so powerful with her words. Just a great job. Thank you. Aubrey. Now, we had quite a few kids here. We learned everything. Even through humor, we learned something. I loved the painting the picture. I loved her humor with the lesson. If you were here for this reached my heart because of things that maybe we do without meaning to do so. You know, when we grow up in a rural community or a rural state, sometimes we are just on one path, one exposure. I loved how she related the theme of the paint and the canvas and the blends. I love how she talked about how each part of her painting has a lesson in life and something we can learn. And we're always better off when we have more colors in our life. And so her speech was just, I wanted to set the pen down and go, could you please come to my school and just tell us about that? Could you expose those kids that don't get exposed to your theme? Because that makes us all a better person and better community members. So I thought what you did to Aubrey was just excellent. I like the power of each word. But here's something you use in your style. You've probably been told this. Did you notice if you were in here, you had this lesson, you almost had tears in your eyes, and then she added humor. You should never bash an audience with depth. Give us a breath of humor. And it was so well mixed. I tell my students all the time, it's like baking cookies. Every ingredient has a reason to go into that bowl before you mix it up. Absolutely perfect ingredients, and the blend was excellent. Thank you. All right, Carly. After dinner, humor, okay? In my age, way before the years you were talking, we kind of called that a valley style, like, oh, hello, okay? You're a stand-up comedian. You're good at that. And I loved how you went behind the podium because it fit perfectly for her girls club meeting. She has a great job with her eyes and the roll of her words coming out of her mouth. Her stage presence demanded, it seemed authentic. I don't think you're an airhead, are you? No, I thought, oh, that was really good. But she came across as what we would call back in the time as airhead, valley girl style. And I loved all the things about Starbucks to all the things that she did with the iPhone. You notice iPhone quit making this style. Flip phone. So I kind of tried to hide it when you're up there. I love the inflection, the softness, the acts like she was kind of like dying out of voice quality, but only to pause for a second and use that humor, that style. I love how teenage audience would relate to this, but also the generation a little bit older or generations a little bit older would enjoy that. So I love how you do that. I hope you take humor up. Because sometimes humor can be forced. I don't know if you've ever seen that where it's just thrown at you and makes you swallow it. I love how she just, it's her presence up there. So I just think she's really, really good at stand-up. So congratulations. Oh, there you are. Okay, I was counting heads. Okay, Angela, unique spelling of Angela, by the way. After dinner, speaking on coffee. I'm a weird person. I sleep 4 hours a night, and I get up every day between 3 and 4, and I go to school by 4:30 in the morning after about 6 cups of coffee. So my wife and I always talk about, I stop on the way 10 miles. I drive 25 miles, and I usually have 2 stops to get more coffee. So I'm addicted. So everything you said was like, yeah, that's me. Oh my gosh, you have a unique voice quality that every single syllable had a purpose. The crispness of the voice and the ends of the words, and she sped up for coffee to give us that angle, and she would hit us with those punchlines and those puns right in our face, and it was so fun. And it didn't let up. Right when you thought, she's what? Then she went right back up again and hit another really good coffee line or joke. I've just thought this is so, I love when people pick a speech topic that relates. And so many, I wasn't going to turn around because I thought that'd be a little bit awkward, but I could just see all of us going, yep, right, yep, got it. So keep up that style. That just is so good for you. Everything about your speech was so polished and articulate, it impressed me very much. Thank you. Stacy, I love when you have a speech again that we learn something about. But also with the lesson, yours is a little bit unique that sometimes we do not want to be taught like slammed it in your face. You know, I'm talking to you, I'm black, you shut up, okay? We related to her and she got us right from the beginning to be a part of her camp. And guys, I'm man enough to say it. I changed after her speech. I've done some things that she said. Oh, you're from Africa. You know, instead of, are you from Iowa? Are you from Des Moines or whatever? I loved how you made that so real without making us feel guilty. It was just like, hey guys, you might want to think about this next time. Oh, did you know there's a few billion people over here? You know, oh yeah, okay. And we're not, I wanted you to say we're not all basketball players. You know, we get these stupid things, but we're in a pure state, #1 state to live in the nation. You probably saw it in the paper. But you're never number one if you don't grow and continue to grow with awareness. So I loved your topic. I love how you made it humorous at times, again, to lighten the mood, but more so, I loved how we could learn something without feeling insulted. I changed, and I hope everybody in this room changed a little bit also. Excellent job. Thank you. Whoa, sorry. As the awards are being handed out, I want to make sure each student thanks their coach or coaches. After being a coach for 35 years, every student in my high school that took part in speech is an extended child in many ways. And I get Facebook messages and texts, even on flip phones, from them all the time. So say thank you and tell them what they did in your life made a difference, and they'll carry that in their heart and mind forever. Thank you again.
Welcome to the book club meeting. That's B-O-O-K, Bibliophiles Opening Our Knowledge. And speaking of opening, we are here to officially dedicate the fourth in the line of Rachel's literary locales, the Rachel's Readers Library. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and a hearty welcome to all. It's great to see so many old classics out in the crowd. Hello, Henrietta. It's so thrilling to see many new faces as well. People who just can't wait to open up a new chapter in their lives of bibliophilia. Before we dive into the inner chapters of this weekend, I would like to give a special thanks to Third Story Catering Company. I hope you enjoyed the circulation salad, return slot relish tray, and the Dewey Decimal dessert. Those microfiche high fiber bars were delicious, weren't they? Hope no one had trouble with their binding after that one. If you're feeling a bit peckish later on, feel free to grab a complimentary dust jacket Danish, a vertical file vino, and they're all located at the Barcode Barista, which is located at the appendix in the back. Thank you again, Third Story. Although I'd have to admit, I got a little overexcited when I ran across your name in the yellow pages. I had no idea that Third Story was in reference to the third floor of the building you're located in. Regardless, I think you'll have to agree they've done a superlative job. Definitely worth marking down your address books. Just make sure you use a slip of paper, not a bent corner page. Let's say we crack the spine on this meeting now that I've given you the preface. Hope I wasn't being too forward. As you may have already figured out, I am Rachel Poppin, your media specialist. Yes, I am one librarian whose friendship is always renewable. I was so pleased to see that this idea for a dedication ceremony was kept in circulation and didn't find its way to dead book storage. I was also pleased to see that all of you turned in your pre-registrations on time and no one was overdue. I am so proud that this meeting is being held at the newly opened Rachel's Readers Library, my company's latest venture following our successes with Rachel's Kids kiosks, Rachel's Leisurely Literary Lounges, and Rachel's Nifty Nooks. It was time for us to turn the page and see what good we could do for bibliophiles everywhere. If there's one thing hey, pay attention. Stop your side reading. I don't care if it's the best part of the book. Sorry about that. As I was saying, if there's one thing that my 3 doctorates in library science have taught me, it's that it's important to have a place where like-minded people can get together and discuss some of the greatest literary masterpieces the literary world has to offer. Here at the Rachel's Readers Library, we have a new collection of books about anti-gravity. They're impossible to put down. I am also incredibly pleased to announce that we have the world's largest public collection of books about insomnia. They're sure to keep you up all night. Before we close this meeting of the book club, I have a few reminders. Make sure you check out the Rachel's Readers Library and all it has to offer before you return to your homes. And lastly, next month's meeting about bookshelf organization will also be taking place here at the Rachel's Readers Library. I hope you look forward to our next volume of this meeting, and unlike most sequels, I promise next time will be just as good. Thank you.
There is a reason the dinosaurs are now extinct. They could not adapt. If a business does not want to suffer the same fate, it must be willing to adapt. It is a common misconception that being a competitor requires one to be bigger, faster, and stronger than others. Instead, remaining competitive simply entails progressively keeping pace with opponents and surviving. Undeniably, business is a form of competition as organizations and institutions contend for patronage to generate revenue. Consequently, conforming to business, technological, and professional development trends is imperative for a company to be regarded as a strong competitor. Unfortunately, these trends are extremely fast-paced and as dramatic as the meteor collision that took place over 60 million years ago. Nevertheless, adapting to appease consumers does not have to be extremely difficult. Recently, many businesses have begun encouraging their employees to practice integrity-focused sales techniques by eliminating commission-based wages. Through doing this, a company makes its customers more comfortable by ensuring that he or she purchases the best item or service possible, which is not necessarily provided through that company. Although this may seem counterintuitive, many institutions have increased profits and satisfaction ratings through this adaptation. Another example of business shifts can be observed in new fundraising methods. Unavoidably, operating a business requires financial support. In the past, these funds were generally accumulated through the sale of stock. Today, however, these funds Today, however, many corporations elect to crowdfund. Essentially, crowdfunding is the process of raising money for new endeavors through contributions from the public. This process differs from the sale of stock because an owner's equity in the business is neither diminished nor diluted as a result of accumulating funds. Obviously, keeping current with business shifts is important in today's business environment. However, integrating new technology and utilizing online processes will help a business to outlast its Paleolithic competitors as well. For example, marketplace shopping is becoming antiquated as online shopping grows more popular. This year alone, the number of online shoppers is expected to increase by 2.4% to 220.6 million people. In response to this tendency, many businesses are pressured to expand into the online marketplace. In turn, more and more organizations are utilizing online order fulfillment services that greatly enhance efficiency and customer satisfaction. Clearly, the nature of currency is very different than just a few decades ago. Consumers have experienced a sweeping variation in payment methods, from cash to plastic, and now to one-touch electronic payment. But even more dramatic than the impact that this shift has had on consumers is the impact on corporations. Because of the wide variety of payment options, a business is now subjected to new transaction fees, laws, and even compatible equipment. But regardless of the inconveniences of conforming to this shift, a business must continue to tailor to its patrons. Although today's transactions rely heavily on barcodes and computerized transfers, the fundamental basis of trade is the same as prehistoric times, when clubs and rocks were the equivalent to dollars and cents. Keeping pace with competition entails much more than simply relying on more technology. Obviously, a business must continue to employ competent individuals who actively contribute to the institution. In order to ensure this is a reality, a business must facilitate several different types of professional development, the first of which is learning. This process is classified by teaching an individual new skills, knowledge, or tactics that are specific to his or her job. Essentially, this type of professional development is formal education. The second type of professional development is connecting. Through this process, employees are matched with individuals who share interests or goals. Cohesive partnerships and teams are products of this type of professional development. Connecting benefits a company similarly to how early civilizations benefited from hunting in large groups. The final type of professional development is creating. Employees are given an issue and expected to come up with a remedy for it. These situations often result in new product lines and advertising opportunities for a company. In turn, employees are given the opportunity to explore the inner workings of a business and forge new relationships as well. Undeniably, being accommodating of whatever curveball is thrown your way is imperative for survival in the business setting. The ultimate goal of business is to outperform competitors. However, outperforming competitors requires one to adapt to meet consumer expectations. If one can accomplish this, it is sure to survive. But if not, profits will continue to decline as business practices become obsolete. Eventually, a business will deteriorate until extinction. But this is easily avoidable. Who knows what today would look like if only the dinosaurs had been able to adapt? Thank you.
Coffee decaffeinated. 13.6 billion is spent on coffee annually in the United States alone. If we want to put that into perspective, that's about 7.2 billion large fries from McDonald's. Or if you're thinking something more practical, that's 13.6 billion items from the Dollar Tree. Now, roughly most Americans spend about $1,200 a year on coffee. If you were to put that away for, let's say, 50 years and invest it, you'd have $750,000. But if we're being honest, none of us are going to do that. So it's about time that we learn how to make our favorite coffee drinks at home for a much cheaper price. The building block for all of our favorite drinks is espresso. Espresso is perfectly made in an espresso machine. But not all of us can afford the $1,500 to, $10,000 price tag on one of those bad boys. And then there's the whole tamping. How long do I tamp? How long do I pull a shot? How short do I pull a shot? All this confusing information that, quite frankly, doesn't matter. So the gift that your mother-in-law got you for Christmas 2 years ago that you've never used, your Keurig, finally has come up with a way to fix that. Keurig K-Pod has come out with an espresso pod. It's super simple. You don't have to worry about the tamping or the pressing or the pulling or any of that. Quite simply, you put it into your Keurig, follow the instructions, and you have the perfect shot of espresso. Espresso starts with the heart, the body, and the crema, and it's what gives the grit of your favorite coffee drinks. It could make an Americano, a latte, or a cappuccino. That sounds pretty good. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit of history. Back in World War II, the Americans were over in Italy. Now, Italians are known for one thing, their pizza. Their coffee. They're really well known for their coffee. After all, that's where espresso originated. So they wanted the Americans to be able to partake in their beautiful, beautiful concept of espresso. However, Americans are too weak and puny and just couldn't handle it. So they decided to water it down and called it, affectionately, the Americano. Its rich, bold flavor is delicious. Not all of us like the bold flavor. Some of us like a little bit of sweetness. So what do you do if you want, say, a latte? Well, that's where steaming comes in and milk. Milk is extremely important into the production of your favorite drinks. You can choose any sort of drink you like and any sort of milk you like as well. For me, I choose almond milk because I'm pretentious, but you could choose non-fat if you're feeling real slim thick. You could choose 2% if you're average, whole if you're flirting with diabetes, or just straight heavy cream if you're on that keto diet. That's a whole nother X-Files I'm not going to get into. But with your milk, if you want a nice creamy latte, you need to steam it, right? Well, there are a couple tools that can help you with that. This tool cost $20. This tool also costs $20. But where on earth did you find such great tools? A hipster secret none of you have heard of. Amazon. Don't tell everybody. This is a room secret for you to all take home. So for $20, you can get this standard wand steamer. You lower it into the cup, bring it to the top of the surface here at for about 4 seconds, lower it back in until it's heated to the perfect 143 degrees. That's still a little bit complicated. So Starbucks has your back with the Verismo milk frother. You pour your milk in, snap on the lid, press the button for 1 second, it's going to do it for you. That's pretty simple. So that brings us to our next drink, the age-old quintessential latte. A latte is espresso and steamed milk. Ooh, but what if I want a vanilla latte? You don't know how to do that, do you? Wrong, I know everything. A vanilla latte is quite simply a latte just with vanilla syrup at the bottom. Ooh, but that caramel macchiato I love so much from Starbucks. Well, I'm here to shed a little light on that caramel macchiato. It's a vanilla latte. The only difference is the fact they put a little caramel drizzle on top and move the shots from the bottom of espresso to above the milk to make it look like your aesthetic. Okay, but what about that cappuccino I love so much? Another news flash. The cappuccino that you got this morning at Casey's for $1.49 is not a cappuccino. That's just like 8,000 calories of sugar. A true cappuccino is very similar to a latte. It steams the milk for that tss, but this tss isn't 4 seconds. Instead, it's 8 seconds. But like I said, you get the Verismo, it'll do that for you too. So instead, it's espresso steam milk and a little bit more foam than the previous latte. But you know, Iowa weather fluctuates. Who knows, tomorrow it might be 80 degrees. What if I want it iced? You're trying to catch me again. Actually, iced drinks are way easier than you think. An iced drink just means you put ice in it and you substitute cold milk or cold water if in the case of Americano. So that's pretty simple. Now you know how you can save a good amount of money by just making your drinks at home. You know what espresso is. You can finally use that gift your mother-in-law gave you. You're able to make your favorite latte, macchiato, and cappuccino. So can you feel that money dripping into your 401k so slowly, like the airdrop coffee brewer at your brother's unsuccessful law firm? Man, that feels good. Mom's going to be so proud. It feels good to be the favorite. Thank you.
Sitting down and creating a handwritten, personalized letter isn't something that happens all too often anymore. In a world that is constantly moving at hyperspeed and posting the first thing that comes to mind, followed by a hashtag, of course, it's easy to forget how powerful our words truly are. Putting pen to paper requires conscious effort, knowing true feelings, and really makes a person think about the purpose of their writing. Writing a fan letter can be one of the most fun types a person can write. There's a thrill in knowing that something you wrote, touched, created, poured feeling into could possibly reach the hands of the one you idolize. But it can also be one of the most stressful. First, we will walk through how to create the most perfect, pristine letter that is guaranteed a lovely response. Then, we'll go through what not to do. Everything to absolutely avoid while trying to come across as a sane, appropriately loving fan. To start off, you must realize that the person you are writing to is bound to receive dozens, if not hundreds of fan letters every day. And there is no possible way that they can read each and every one of them. So you must do something to make your envelope stand out. I suggest using a colored envelope, nothing obnoxious like neon, but something sensible, like a mauve or pastel, which is still fun, but not so in your face. Now, we must consider what is inside the envelope. We really want this person to get a sense of who you are. One of the best ways you can do this is by including a photograph, a picture of yourself, possibly with a friend, wearing some of that person's merchandise if they have it. Also, consider what kind of stationery you will be using. And if it hasn't been made clear enough already, the letter must be handwritten. There's no way around it. There is nothing personal about typing in Arial size 12 font single-spaced with 1-inch margins. But that does not mean to be sloppy. Penmanship must be neat, easily legible. Besides, how do you expect the person you are writing to respond if they have no idea what you are saying? Finally, it is time to introduce yourself. Explain who you are and why you are such a fan. Compliment this person's work, and if it's needed, do some extra research to let them know that you truly are committed. Finally, you could kindly ask for some signed merchandise back, like a photograph, but make sure it is clearly stated that a letter in response would mean the absolute world to you. Now, the closing. Never sign off sincerely. We want this to have sparkle, pizzazz, such as your #1 fan. We want this to be memorable and be the perfect ending to the perfect letter. Now that we have a strong basis of what to do, we can move on to the what not to do's. Of course, there are the obvious ones. Don't be basic, don't be boring, but do not go overboard. For example, when including that photograph to include inside the envelope, make sure it is not the one of you sitting inside that shrine that you have created for that person. This may give off the impression that you could be obsessed, and that's not good. Now I go back to the idea of penmanship. Of course, don't be sloppy, but above all else, do not dot your I's with hearts. As for content, don't let this celeb know that you silently sit outside his house every night waiting to see when he comes home and if he makes it to bed. Do not let him know that he is already your boyfriend and is your future husband. Do not tell him that you love him or sign off your future wife. In terms of personalization, do not spritz the envelope with your perfume. After all, he could be allergic. Do not kiss the envelope or the letter. After all, this creates germs and could lead to illness. Do not doodle a picture of you and him in the corner on your wedding day. Do not include the mashup you have created to see what your future kids will look like. All of these things are not good. But if you do happen to do any one of them, you will get a letter in response. Just probably not the one that you were hoping for. It's going to be a cease and desist. writing is an art, and it must be practiced in order to be perfected. Now, I don't expect anybody to get it right on the first try, but by clearly following the steps in the do section and by carefully avoiding those in the do not, you are sure to formulate a lovely letter that is guaranteed a lovely response. Someone once said, letter writing can be seen as a gift because that person has taken his or her time to write, think, and express love. So, I encourage all of you to write a letter and give the gift of yourself.
Imagine you're on the sidelines of the Super Bowl. You're standing right next to the coach of the Philly Eagles. Zach Ertz catches the ball. He scores a touchdown. The Eagles are going to win the game. Ertz gives you a wink before he runs back into the field. How enthralling. So you sit down to enjoy the rest of the game. On your living room couch, 250 miles away from the stadium. Welcome to augmented reality. The concept of AR has been around for a long time, but recently we've seen a huge spike in interest with the game Pokemon Go. Although this game is considered by many to be an incomplete display of AR, it did popularize this fascinating concept. So to fully understand augmented reality, first let's battle out the specifics of this concept, then we'll catch up to date on what AR looks like today, and finally we'll go to the future and see what lies ahead for AR. But first I'm going to stop with the Pokemon puns. So what is augmented reality? Well, to understand AR, we need to understand VR. Virtual reality is the idea that we divulge ourselves into an artificial environment. We see something from our phone or from a headset, and we see a totally new environment. Remember when you were young and your parents would tell you to sit far away from the TV when you were watching it? Well, now we're bringing the TV super close to our eyes, just disconnecting us from the real world. So to solve this problem, augmented reality takes this concept just a little further. Instead of just viewing some virtual environment, augmented reality fuses that artificial element into our own environment, allowing us to stay in our real surroundings. Let's just take the example of Pokemon Go. Imagine you've spotted a Pikachu just lying on the ground, not moving or glitching. That's because the game has an algorithm that detects stable objects for Pokemon to stand on. Another example of this is the scene from the Kingsman movie, in which Arthur and Harry sit down for their meeting, wear their glasses, and then see members from all around the world seated right next to them, as though they were just 3 inches apart rather than 3 countries away. But this technology isn't just stuff in video games and movies. Today's technology has expanded a lot since Pokemon Go. Recently, Snapchat added multiple AR features that allow users to plop elves on shelves and robots on tables with only the press of a button. The company, Magic Leap, recently came out with their new One augmented reality goggles that allow users to use multiple electronic features and place objects around different locations. For example, you could just plop a virtual TV onto your wall and then play a video game on it. This technology will serve as competition for Apple's AR kit and Microsoft's HoloLens later this year. But this technology is also being implemented today. Before they go to med school, students have the opportunity to use AR to learn about biological systems and potentially view mock dissections of a virtual body. According to CNET, in an Australian Red Cross clinic, nurses are using AR to view veins on patients when it seems infeasible to find a location to draw blood. But the advancement of this technology won't just stop there. The future holds a lot of potential for augmented reality. Remember these Kingsman glasses? Well, imagine if we could take that technology and implement it into our frames or even contacts. Instead of sending texts, snaps, or videos to each other, we would have the power to send Tony Stark-level holograms and holographically FaceTime each other. Just imagine a world in which you wake up viewing the weather on your left and the time on your right through your smart contacts, then walk through your daily routines with a virtual assistant, and finally go downstairs to your personal office, where with the assistance of some cameras and some sensors, you virtually enter your workplace, attend meetings, and socialize with those around you. And this technology also goes back to that medical world too. Imagine if we could take those interactions you have in that augmented world and apply them to reality. In the near future, with advanced robotics, surgeons in the central UK would be able to perform surgeries on patients in Indonesia. The possibilities are endless. Augmented reality, unlike today's smartphones or VR headsets, does not depersonalize communication, but rather communicates personalization in a way that allows us to carry very personal interactions with each other. Implementing this technology in the future will tremendously improve our lives. Pokemon Go may have been a poor man's version of AR, but the future of this technology will catch 'em all.
Prom. It's the most important night of your high school experience. For the ladies, it's the nails, the hair, the dress, the makeup, Sorry, I got too caught up in prom. For the fellas, it's the car, the tux, the hair, who am I kidding? Most dudes wake up from a nap, throw on their tux that their date or mom picked out, drive off to get their date while avoiding pictures that their mother is trying to get. But seriously, when it comes to prom, for guys or gals, the most important thing is the date. Now, finding this mystery man or woman can be a process that's sometimes challenging, but you will have a splendid time at prom as long as you find a date that you are completely 100% compatible with, have the best promposal, and 3, you need to make sure that you don't lose your date. Now, you and your date have to be perfect for each other. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you're going to marry your prom date, but if you do, kudos to you, because that is #relationship goals. Anyway, if you're looking to dance the night away, you'd find a man who'll get jiggy with it all night long. Look for a guy that's in choir, was in the school musical, or my favorite, scope out the musical theater room at district large group speech, so you have time to plan. If you're more of a, I'm gonna sit by the punch table and look cool all night kind of girl, then you need to find a guy who is maybe a little more quiet or laid back in the classroom. But if all you want to do with your date is take pictures, then you have to find the best looking and most photogenic guy in your high school. Because trust me, you do not want to spend $29.95 on an 8x10 picture with a guy that smiles like this. So take out your yearbook, grab your Polaroid camera, and just start snapping pictures. You'll find the right one. Remember, never settle and find your perfect date. Now, secondly, you have to have the best promposal. According to UrbanDictionary.com, a promposal is the act of contriving a large, elaborate plan to increase your chances of getting a date to prom that may, 1, end in a pseudo-marriage, or 2, end in utter humiliating failure. Now, if you're already going steady with your date, then I suggest doing something small and meaningful. Pressed flowers spelling out prom. Chocolates
spelling out prom. Or my personal favorite, because it's very useful, a candle that says prom. However, many of you are not in a relationship with your future prom date, then you, my friend, are in a risky business. I highly suggest doing something large and extravagant and in a public way, so then they can't say no. Posters are most widely used by prom goers, and they're totally Instagram worthy. And you can make them edible. You can make them artsy. You can make them funny. Or my personal favorite, because I know that it works, you can make it specific to your date's interests. Lastly, the most important part about finding and obtaining your prom date is keeping them. Ladies, please do not scare your date away. Do not constantly text him 8 million questions on whether he's picked out a tux or corsage or the right colored socks. You're better off asking his mother instead. In fact, it is likely that she has already picked those things out for him. But guys, you aren't off the hook either. You too can lose your prom date. If you don't, 1, acknowledge the fact that you're going to prom and ignore your date incessantly, she will in fact dump you. Or 2, please check the sizing on your tux, because trust me, no girl wants to walk down Grand March with a guy who looks like he's about to go walking through a creek in white athletic socks. Please remember, check the sizing on your tuck at least 1 week before prom. Now, prom is one of the most magical nights of high school and is remembered by anyone who's ever attended the prom. You'll always remember the dress, the hair, the makeup, the music, but you'll never forget your date. So take my advice, ladies and gentlemen, and make it a prom to remember.
In a world filled with crime and violence, it's almost inevitable for bad things to happen. When these despicable acts occur, many are affected. The poem, How I've Changed, shows that pain is not always visible, the guilt not always shining on the surface. Their being has changed on the inside, and we cannot see what they do. How I've Changed, author unknown. How I've changed may not be apparent. I limp, read and write, make tea at the stove as I practiced in rehab. Sometimes, like fire, a task overwhelms me. I shriek and cry when the phone rings. Like a page pulled from flame, I'm singed, but intact. I don't burn down the house. Many survivors wish they could forget their guilt, but the faces of the slain haunt them, always at the forefront of their minds. Eventually, they'll gain the strength to forgive themselves and not be haunted by the guilt of their survival. But the price is heavy, and their being may never be whole again. My Pain by Murray Brown. Do you know what it's like to feel pain? The aching body, life's constant drain. Uncontrollable anger throughout this surge. I hate those feelings, that pent-up urge. Incredible discomfort, the body suppressed, an altered ego, the other depressed. Unknown instructions on a relentless road, a self-destructing, helpless mode. Outbursts of emotions not good to the eye, with alternative actions that curl up and die. Unable to see why with life I can't cope. That eternal triangle, the end of the rope. At night, the dreams come. Destruction of life. Death is the struggle, the pain, and the strife. Help is the plea, yet these words you don't hear. When will this end? This living in fear. Not fear of the living, not fear of the dead, only the fear of the thoughts that are trapped in my head. My life's been destroyed, and I'm no longer free. This is what war has done to me. Not out for revenge because I'm nobody's fool. 100%, I gave them my all. I'm living an endless nightmare in hell. I want my life back. I need to be well. Control is no option when it's all down to fate. Please help me return before it's too late. You see, the mouth moves, but these words you don't hear. It's like I'm screaming in pain, yet you're so unaware. Remorse for my actions hit hard on my soul. Relentlessly searching, yet never reaching my goal. Swap places with me from my feet to my head. Feel what it's like to be alive, but yet dead. Discontinued association, emotions depleted. In this war I have lost, I'm completely defeated. Last chance to resume, to toe the line. Please give me back what was once mine. Denial of life, held by a strand. The desert took its toll, all alone in the sand. So open your heart, because your ears, they seem so closed. I'm not who I was, I'm not calm, and I am not composed. Please feel what I feel. Be exposed to my life. Feel as it goes in the twist of that knife. The war may have ended, and the battle was won. But I'm still fighting my fight. My war still goes on. Despondent, dismayed, feeling low and diminished. The war may have ended, but my battle's not yet finished. With what's left of life, I hold on and sustain. Yet, within this darkness, I wallow in pain. Know what I see from these eyes of fate. Help me return before it's too late. And remember the dead, their commitment, and their giving. But please don't forget the dead that are living.
Sarah Kay's spoken word poem, Point B, artfully yet powerfully addresses the complexities of the mother-daughter relationship. Sarah Kay, Point B. If I should have a daughter, instead of Mom, she's gonna call me Point B, because that way, no matter what happens, she can always find her way to me. And I'm gonna paint the solar systems on the backs of her hands so she has to learn the entire universe before she can say, oh, I know that like the back of my hand. And she's gonna learn that this life will hit you hard in the face. Wait for you to get back up just so it can kick you in the stomach. But getting the wind knocked out of you is the only way to remind your lungs how much they like the taste of air. There is hurt here that cannot be fixed by Band-Aids or poetry. So the first time she realizes that Wonder Woman isn't coming, I'll make sure she knows she doesn't have to wear that cape all by herself, because no matter how wide you stretch your fingers, your hands will always be too small to catch all the pain you want to heal. Believe me, I've tried. And baby, I'll tell her, don't keep your nose up in the air like that. I know that trick. I've done it 1,000,000 times. You're just smelling for smoke. So you can follow the trail back to a burning house to find the boy who lost everything in a fire to see if you can save him. Or else to find the boy who lit the fire in the first place to see if you can change him. But I know she will anyway, so instead, I'll always keep an extra supply of chocolate and rain boots nearby, because there is no heartbreak that chocolate can't fix. Okay, there are a few heartbreaks that chocolate can't fix, but that's what the rain boots are for. Because rain can wash away anything if you just let it. I want her to look at the world through the underside of a glass-bottom boat, to look through a microscope at the galaxies that exist on a pinpoint of a human mind, because that's the way my mom taught me, that there'll be days like this. There'll be days like this, my mama said, when you open up your hands to catch and only wind up with blisters and bruises. When you step out of the phone booth and try to fly, and the very people you want to save are the ones standing on your cape. When your boots will fill with rain, and you'll be up to your knees in disappointment, and those are the very days you have all the more reason to say thank you, because there is nothing more beautiful than the way the ocean refuses to stop kissing the shoreline no matter how many times it's sent away. You'll put the wind in win some, lose some. You'll put the star in starting over and over, and no matter how many landmines erupt in a minute, be sure your mind lands on the beauty of this funny place we call life. And yes, on a scale from 1 to over-trusting, I am pretty damn naive, but I want her to know that this world, it's made out of sugar. It can crumble so easily, but don't be afraid to stick out your tongue and taste it. Baby, I'll tell her, remember your mama is a worrier, and your papa is a warrior, and you are the girl with small hands and big eyes who never stops asking for more. Remember that good things come in threes, but so do bad things. Always apologize when you've done something wrong, but don't you ever apologize for the way your eyes refuse to stop shining. Your voice is small, but never stop singing. And when they finally hand you heartache, when they slip war and hatred underneath your door and offer you handouts on street corners of cynicism and defeat, you tell them that they really ought to meet your mother.
Yay! It was so exciting. Congratulations on being here and having the opportunity to perform. It's an honor to get to respond to each of you. So I'm going to go ahead and start out with Rachel. As a fellow book nerd, I was like super pumped about your presentation. I really liked all of the book puns. You had fantastic eye contact. I really, really loved the moment when, and I'm sure you all remember this, when she would giggle and then kind of like snort, you know? And for some reason, it got funnier each time she did it. The jokes, some of them, and I mean this in the most like complimentary way, were so bad. I loved them so much. Because you really just embraced that that's what you were going for. And I really, really appreciated it. It's difficult to, it's a lot of pressure to get up and have to not only sort of teach us about something, but be humorous at the same time. And you did a really wonderful job with that. My only sort of thing to sort of work on is to have like these little moments where maybe you make it feel a little less planned. In some ways, take that rehearsed bit and just take it back a bit. But it was so wonderful. Thank you, Rachel. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yay. All right, Jaden. Awesome. Fantastic attention getter. I really, so his attention getter, just to kind of remind you all, started out with the dinosaurs and sort of comparing that to, you know, business. And I really appreciated the pacing of your speech. A lot of times when you're trying to bring up the energy, it's easy to go really, really fast. I catch myself doing this all the time, but you kept this at a pace where I felt like I could follow you without losing the energy. You did a great job of defining terms and helping us understand complex ideas, which is what this event is really about, right? How do you help make complex ideas accessible to your audiences? And I really, really appreciated that. And the topic seems so important for young entrepreneurs. I mean, for everyone, but particularly young entrepreneurs. You're very poised. You have a professional delivery style that makes perfect sense for your topic. And I really appreciated the main point about how important it is to be really flexible and to have this continuous adaptation. And I think that not only did you make that incredibly clear in your presentation, you kind of modeled that for us. So thank you so much, Jaden. Awesome, good work. All right, Draven, yeah, we can all go and make some caffeine, you know, get our caffeine fix after this. You do such a phenomenal job of establishing relevancy. So like, why is this important? What makes this topic significant? By starting out and letting us know how many people drink coffee, how many of us this affects. I know that I could see some of the people sitting in my row at the time, were nodding their head and were like, yeah, I gotta go get coffee after this. You do such a great job with variety in your pacing, so you would kind of speed up and slow down at very appropriate times that kind of kept us pulled in. You were really well prepared, and it was clear that you had rehearsed, while at the same time keeping this really conversational delivery style that felt like you were talking with us as opposed to sometimes at us. So really loved your visual aids. I loved how you could kind of pull off the different parts. It's so creative. And I love that your information is practical and usable. So it felt like, oh, this is something that afterwards I can really use. And you kind of, in some ways you do a little bit of the opposite of what sometimes happens, where you maybe take really complex ideas and simplify them. You kind of took something that feels simple to all of us, like coffee, right? And you made it a little bit more complex by highlighting the things that maybe we take for granted that we don't know. So really great job. Thank you so much, Draven. Congratulations. Chloe, yay, lost art of letter writing, right? So one of the things that I really appreciated, and in this group of presentations, we didn't utilize the PowerPoints quite as much, but I really appreciated that on a speech about the lost art of letter writing, that you used some old school VAs for us and you rocked them, right? Like, I loved how creative the visual aids were. It was just a really creative way to set them up, help us see what you were talking about. It's such a playful topic and really fun. Really great energy. You're incredibly well prepared. I think that there's times where maybe you could be a little bit more conversational, but you really find this sort of as you get to the end. So by the time you get to the end, you kind of bring us back down and you're kind of like, hey, I'm just going to talk to you now. Such a fun topic, really surprising. And then your movement, you move a lot throughout the presentation, and it always feels really motivated, as opposed to like, oh, and now I'm going to give a main point, right? Like, it felt really natural. So I really appreciated that. Congratulations, Chloe. Thank you. Yay. Good work. All right, Mythilish, right? Did I get that correct? All right, wonderful. So on AR, augmented reality, first of all, I love the juxtaposition of the Pokemon animals, like, with some of the other visual aids. So, like, I was really struck by, the medical picture, right, that was, like, right in front of me, and it was, like, such a funny, interesting thing that I was like, where is this going? Like, I didn't know what your topic was going to be. So that alone, like, grabbed my attention. And then you had a phenomenal attention getter. I love the way that you involve your entire body in your presenting. I really appreciated the puns. I know that you kind of move away from them, but I like them. The presentation's incredibly well organized, and you do a great job with previews, so you kind of let your audience know where you're going, so you take us along with you. I thought you did such a great job of connecting the topic to experiences that your audience may have had. And I think that's really important when you're doing this sort of speaking, to let your audience know, like, this matters to you and this is why it's important for you. Of course, your delivery, you have this, like, amazingly, like, prepared but, like, laid back style. Like, you just feel very confident and calm and but professional at the same time, and I really appreciated it. So you're energetic without it necessarily being over the top, and you do such a fantastic job of making this relevant and timely. So congratulations, Michelle. Yay. Congratulations. Oh my goodness. Alice Ann, right? Yeah. Alice Ann gave a speech in formal wear. Like, she deserves a round of applause for that, right? Like, it's like just really hard to be in formal wear, let alone like move around as much as she had to in these. I mean, it's so hard. Like, you're gifted to dance in these things. And then promposal, I'm like, gosh, I have so much to learn these days. We didn't have those sorts of pressures when I was in school. So this is such a fun and playful topic and probably really timely because I'm guessing prom's coming up here soon, right? Your delivery is so varied, and I really appreciate how you move. I think you embrace the sort of over-the-top delivery, but then you kind of bring it back down and you're just really natural and conversational. And so I really like sort of how you move back and forth between that. Your visual aids are so fun. I think it's so funny that you had tube socks just up there. And so there's such a variety and you move between them really well and didn't, because having that many and such different types of visual aids, you really could kind of, it could get difficult, and you managed that really well. Great movement. It felt always motivated and natural. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Yay. Oh, sorry. Thank you. All right, Jordan, I always love it when I see male students taking on poetry, and you do it really fantastically. You have such great eye contact and facial expression through the entire piece, and it's such an intense piece, and you do such a great job of capturing the intensity and the complexity of the emotions in the poems. I really appreciate the moments where you play with the poetry and let the language do the work. So some specific moments where the word singed, you let it be singed, and or aching body, you kind of let the body ache. You also do a really good job of playing with body tensions. So even though you're doing a poetry performance and it's not acting, right, you still call onto your entire body to do things. There's also, I think, a moment where you kind of went up and down, and I really like those moments where you let your body interpret the poetry. Great vocal variety. Congratulations, Jordan. Good work. Thank you. All right, last but not least, Ashlyn. You do such a great job with this. I really like the way that Ashlyn used pauses. So sometimes we forget that not speaking, using silence is a really important way of communicating a message. And you do a great job of playing with the pauses so that they work for you. I also really like how you play with the cadence of the piece, so the rhythm and the beat to it. So there's places where she would kind of speed up really quick, and then she would slow down, and I really liked those little moments. You have a really great voice. It's calming. I don't know, I really like your voice. I just want you to talk to me. You do a good job of playing with the poetry while still letting the poetry tell us a story. And although poetry doesn't involve character work the way that maybe a prose performance would, you kind of convinced me that you can understand what it'd be like to be a mother, right? And so I think that really reminds us of the power of performance to produce empathy and to create these empathetic moments where we can understand experiences. And so I really, really appreciate that, Ashlyn. Congratulations. Yay! Great job, y'all. Thank you all for coming.